For all things outdoors, listen to the father of two, the Jesus-loving TV show hosting hairy, true-blood American redneck, Ben Cole.
And listen to the outdoor filming, chef cooking, chocolate milk drinking, John Weissmuller. And we are
Rooted Podcast. Hey everybody, thanks for joining again another episode of Rooted Podcast. So if you guys remember last week, we were talking about clover and soybeans and cowpeas, and we're talking about protein and nutrition and all this fun stuff. Well, on this week's episode, we're going to talk about how the deer actually digest all of these things and how they get the nutrients and get the protein and all of that fun stuff. But before we deep dive into that, Ben has a message for us all that really just ties this all together. So Ben, if you will, sir.
Hello, everybody. We're back. And today I'm going to talk about Genesis 1, verse 28. And it says, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food. And to the beasts of the earth, and the birds of the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it, I give everything for food. And it was so. There you go, folks. That's in the first book of the Bible there. The critters were made for us to consume. And, you know, just because we have rule over them does not mean that we just get to, you know, go out and do whatever. We got to take care of these animals too, right? So that's the whole part of conservation and doing our part. But if you're going to take an animal, eat the animal, period. Plain as day. You know, don't waste it. Don't throw it or leave it laying. That's the most disrespectful thing you could possibly do. And you probably should learn a little bit more before you just dive off and just leave a deer laying there. I mean, eat it.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. Kill to eat.
So now we're talking about what we do. Now let's deep dive into what the deer does and how the deer eats. That way it gets all big and strong for us to take it out later in life. So let's dive in, Ben.
So to understand what we talked about in the last episode and how it applies to the deer, we must first understand their digestive system. So a deer is a ruminant animal, just like cattle, and there's several others in the ruminant family. Excuse me. But what is a ruminant, right? So that is considered an animal with a stomach that has 4 chambers, and it goes in this order. You have the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, and the abomasum. So this conglomerate of a stomach actually consumes about 75% of the body cavity, which is pretty wild when you think about how big that stomach actually is. You know, when you have the lungs, the liver, the intestine, and all that other stuff that's in there too. It's just kind of wild to think that the stomach consumes that much of the thoracic cavity in a whitetail. But now let's dive into actually breaking down what each part of this stomach does. So the rumen, the very first spot that the food goes to once it's been chewed up, is the rumen. And that is more like the storage vat. Okay, so it hangs out in there. There are some microbes that help start the process of digestion. It helps ease it along, and then it moves it to the reticulum. Now, the reticulum is going to have, excuse me, it's going to take those smaller particles of feed and further break them down before they move into the omasum. Now, the omasum is where all the water absorption happens. So whether it's by water they've drank or food that they have consumed, that is where it's all absorbed. And then you move into the abomasum, which is more like our stomach. So you have the stomach acid and you have enzymes that are excreted from the pancreas to mix with the stomach acid to help break down proteins and fats, carbs, and all that stuff. So that is a look at what a deer's stomach does and how it functions.
Gotcha. So just like we were talking last week of how digestible things are, it's important to know how the deer's going to digest it. That way, you know what to plant to get the most out of whatever you're looking for, which is usually protein and obviously all the nutrients, right? That way the deer, whether it's a buck, can grow the best antlers that it can genetically grow, or that the doe has great milk to then feed her young, and that way those young grow up all healthy and happy and move on with life, right? That's the kind of the idea here.
Yeah, so that's the general consensus of what we're talking about. But let's look at it a little bit deeper. So you mentioned soybeans, cowpeas, clover. So all of these options are very, very high in protein. So for example, soybeans, 35% protein. Okay. If a deer is consuming something that is lower in protein, they're already not going to get a lot to start with. So what I'm getting at is, if you have a small amount of protein, they're going to absorb a smaller amount of protein. If you have a lot of protein, they're going to absorb a larger portion of that protein, because let's face it, they're not going to truly absorb every single bit of protein that is eaten and put into their digestive system, right?
Sure.
So that's one thing you got to look at. And then you got to look at like your dietary fiber and things like that. So dietary fiber is also known as roughage. And we'll talk more about that later when we dive into the TDN. It all falls into the same category there. But that's one of the other things that you got to look at. And I mean, honestly, you know, with the clover, the soybeans, cowpeas, and let's face it, this is the spring and summer plots, right? So this is not talking about the winter plots and things of that nature. So this is just for the spring. I want everybody that's listening to know that, you know, is this that's what that is this is for the spring. So you know, we're talking about protein and how it's absorbed and all that stuff. So what does protein actually do, right? So protein builds muscle and keeps the body at an optimal level for max antler growth and the highest percent of milk production. So that's what protein does. What do carbs and fat do, right? So carbs and fat, so actually, it's kind of funny. They're eaten as carbs but stored as fat. Okay, and carbs also act as energy. But the thing is, when it's stored as fat, that is a reserve of energy for later, which is what we're trying to give them to make it through the winter, to make it through the rut, and all those hardships that are going to come along in that time of the year, because they're chasing those does all over God's creation and burning a bunch of fat, burning a bunch of energy. So that's why it's crucial now to go ahead and start building those fat reserves on these deer, so that way they can sustain life through that time of the year.
Gotcha. Which, I mean, makes a ton of sense, right? It's just like we were saying in the last week's episode, like, you got to be planning now, because if you start planning November 1, it's too late.
Absolutely. Way too late if you're planning November 1, buddy. You should be planning November 1 for next spring.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Which is my point, you know, and I know we're sitting here laughing about it, but I know you and me know people that are like, all right, it's November, it's time for deer season. It's like, oh, dude, time for deer season was right after turkey season ended for me.
dude.
Like what are we doing?
Bro, I start putting minerals out as soon as I get the first trail cam picture with an antler falling off a head. The very
Yeah,
first,
absolutely.
yeah, the very first buck that I see that has lost both sides of his antlers, mineral time. And I mean, it doesn't hurt to just
Well,
keep them out all
and
year.
about to say, and also we're pretty good about just kind of keeping them all year. We both have set mineral sites that have it looked like a backhoe done been in there. I mean, so it's like I mean, it's kind of like we're there. It's already there. We just replenish it more often during certain times of the year. Is really all
That's
it
right.
is.
Yeah, no, you're
But
100%
anyway,
right on that.
so I've always been kind of curious about. I've heard a lot of people talk about calcium, including yourself last week. Um, dude, I mean, the only thing I know about calcium is my mom told me to drink milk so I'd have strong bones because it's got a bunch of calcium. I mean, what is that even factual? What is calcium? What does it do for a deer? Is it the same as humans? Like what does it do?
So, calcium is critical for antler growth and total skeletal system growth as well. But it also plays a huge factor in milk production. So when a fawn is first born, you want to have a high amount of colostrum. And what colostrum is a bunch of antibodies that get them ready for whatever comes their way, right? So their mom already has a bunch of antibodies built up in their body. So that first run of milk is colostrum. So, you want to have the calcium levels right. And there's other things that play into that as well, like your proteins and a bunch of macro and micro minerals as well. But just for the fact of talking about calcium, yes, your mom was correct. It is about the skeletal system and it makes you have strong bones. Fortunately, you don't produce milk, you're not lactating, so you don't have to worry about that. And you're not growing antlers. So, but for the deer, for the deer, that's what it's about.
This show's so stupid, man. I mean, we go off on a dumb tangent sometimes. Anyway, I'm sorry. Yeah, so it grows antlers, obviously, and it's great for the milk production. So let me ask you this. This is something that's just off the top of my dome here. Is like you hear calcium's great for antlers, so is protein. Is it great or recommended that you have a great balance of both, or do you try to get more protein? Because everybody seems to be like it needs to be high protein, but like it should it be 50-50 or how does that work?
Well, technically speaking, 90% of the calcium and phosphorus that are consumed go to the skeletal system. Now, how does that break down into the percentages of what goes to what? Yes, you do need high protein. Yes, you do need calcium. And yes, you do need phosphorus. So, phosphorus and calcium are going to consume about 35 to 40% of antler growth, right? Because that's the main things in building bone, which is antler, skeletal system, all that stuff. So essentially an antler is what's left over. So when the bones and the whole skeletal system gets exactly what they need, then after that, it goes into antler production. So I would say it's closer to a 50-50, maybe a 60-40.
Okay.
But I would say, that it varies, man. It varies with every deer.
Sure. But, just a general blanket, call it 50-50, 60-40, rough and tough.
Yeah, something like that. Because, too, like in the Midwest, man, their soil is naturally rich with minerals. So you don't even have to put out minerals, because it's just naturally there. Like what we've got here is a bunch of rocks. We got a bunch of chert. We do have some minerals, but adding it is what we have to do to help aid what the soil does not have.
Well, and especially in these mountains, it's a very popular thing here to get a deer that doesn't have big browns, and a lot of people are like, "Yep, that's just a good old mountain deer because it doesn't get all the nutrients and minerals and protein and calcium and all that to
Yeah.
grow to its greatest potential because it's just eating on whatever the mountain has, and a lot of
Hmm.
times it's not high in mineral, and everything else it's just whatever's there that year, pretty much, but
Yeah.
yes, I mean, I do see what you're saying. So, um, anyway, I just had to ask that question. It seemed appropriate there.
Well, what you were just talking about, people saying, well, it doesn't have big brows because it's a mountain deer. Well, a mountain deer, that's fine if you want to call them that, but there are ways to plant food plots on a mountain. I'm
Well,
doing it
yeah,
right
there's a
now.
lot of things out there. Yeah,
I'm doing it right now.
right.
I mean, I literally went today and prepared a spot on the mountain for a food plot. I mapped it out on the old HuntWise app there, drove around it, dropped my pins, and covered it all up, and then, got ready to. And the reason I did that was because I would know how much acreage I was covering. And turns out it was just less than a quarter of an acre. So it's a really small plot. So I'm going to dive in and put clover in there because I know that it can handle the browse pressure. And I did just add a new mineral site there because I realized, holy smokes, I've never had a mineral site here. Probably a great idea. So,
Yeah, right.
because, looking back over the data from last year's season, there was a pile of bucks going through there. I mean, a bunch of them, and there were some golly whoppers in there. So I thought, might as well start now and get these big boys growing bigger.
Absolutely. And then we'll go in there and schwack one.
Shellac town.
But any which way.
So let's move on from calcium and all that good stuff. So fiber. I talked about fiber earlier when we were talking
Mm-hmm.
about dietary fiber. So what is fiber? I kind of gave you a brief synopsis of what it was. It turns into sugars, which are then eaten by bacteria in the stomach system, which helps break down everything else. So it all plays together. It's this chemical concoction of greatness that breaks down the food and turns it into the most absorbable portion of the feed that it can be. So
Gotcha.
that's pretty much what the fiber does is it aids in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, man.
So
Go
let's kind of dive back into what each plant kind of does for the deer based on how the deer digests. So, like, if we're talking about, okay, I need you to plant one thing that's going to make the deer grow the biggest antler it can. Are you picking cowpeas or soybeans
ahead.
because of the protein? Or, I mean, what are you looking at? If someone's like, dude, I need one seed that's going to grow the biggest antler, kind of.
Well, buddy, I'm gonna have to go with clover on that. And the
Yeah.
reason why is clover grows in a vast array of terrains, and it's not susceptible to shade, and it is really high in browse pressure tolerance, and it still has a lot of high protein, high fat, and all of that. The others you have to plant in big plots to get the browse pressure to where it's at an acceptable level. So I would go clover, hands down, because you can plant it
Gotcha.
on a mountainside, you can plant it in a tenth of an acre plot, you can plant it in a 5 acre plot. Doesn't matter. It will grow and it will
Okay.
keep coming. So it'll keep coming back.
That makes
it's
sense.
like, so you plant soybeans
Right.
in a tenth of an acre, they're gone in 2 days. Clover just
Right.
keeps
So
coming back,
really,
keeps coming back.
so even if the and I don't know if this is even true or not, but even if the soybean is higher in protein, I mean, if you only can plant, even if it's an acre, the deer are going to run through it and not get as much. Versus if the clover is just the same or even a little under, it's going to eat more and more and more of it, and probably over time obtain more protein, right?
Yeah, yeah, no,
And then
that's
grow bigger antlers and all that jazz.
yeah. So that's 100% right because not everybody has big fields like we have down at the ranch. You can't go in and
Right.
plant a 13-acre field of soybeans or a combined 30 acres of
Yeah.
soybeans.
Oh, I hear you.
Which is what you really need to sustain that digestion or that feed pressure. But clover, like you just said, if you go in and plant a quarter of an acre in soybeans or peas, well, they're gone in 2 days. So they get one meal out of that, maybe two. The clover,
Right.
they're going to get continuous food all year round.
Mm-hmm.
Winter,
Yep,
summer,
that makes sense.
fall, all of it. Spring. It is the perfect thing for small plots and big plots. I mean, it works well for both. There's really not a downside to clover.
Yeah, and plus, when you're done deer hunting, turkey season's coming around. The turkeys like it.
Phew-wee, what you talking about? Killing turkeys, baby. Right there in that clover and that chufa field.
Buddy, it ain't even gonna be fair next season. I'm just telling you. I'm just telling y'all right now. This is off the rail a little bit, but Ben has got some plans on some food plots, and I ain't gonna give it all away, but we're gonna have some awesome footage coming out next spring. I mean, we had awesome footage this spring, but next spring, I'm telling you all, I'm just telling y'all, it's gonna be off the chain. So you need to pay attention. But
it is.
We will focus on deer for the moment and get all that content out and get all that hunting done. Because listen, I love turkey hunting and I love deer hunting too. So, my mind's on that. We're getting our bows out and all that fun jazz and mineral sites and food plots and all that fun stuff. But anyway.
I need to get my bow out. That was a good point. I probably should.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, sometimes Ben is a, kind of rolls with the wind every once in a while. And sometimes, you're like, hey, have you shot your bow? He's like, no, I've been on a tractor all day. I don't have time to shoot my bow. Leave me alone. You're like, okay. I mean, you may want to shoot your bow, but he always comes through and it always works out in the end anyway. So, I mean, hey, he did shoot a big old nice deer in Oklahoma just a couple years back with his bow. So it all works out.
Hey, it does, man. It all works out at the right time, the way the good Lord wants it to. And I'm also known to be a bit of a procrastinator when it comes to doing stuff for myself. I would rather do stuff for others before I do stuff for myself. My mom told me that a long time ago. She was like, you're always doing stuff for other people. I was like, yeah, I know, because I love
It's what I like to do.
I like to help people. I can't help myself. Okay. That's what I like to do. So leave me alone. I love helping people, man. But the crazy thing is what you were just talking about, as far as the digestion and all that, if I could plant one seed, what would it be? So here's another reason why I chose clover. And I wanted to save this for right now because it really fits in well for what you asked. So, total digestive nutrients, also known as TDN. What is TDN? It is the sum of total digestible fiber, protein, fat, and carbohydrate components that are in a feed or a diet. So that is more of like how much of the feed, how much of the plant, if you will, is truly digestible. So the reason I chose clover, it is 50 to 75% digestible, meaning 50 to 75% of each bite that deer takes is digestible.
Now, I just want to clarify something.
Mm-hmm.
Is the reason the range is so big is because we're talking different types of clover? Yes. Or does it just depend? Okay. So like crimson clover, which is what we all plant, is that, I mean, I don't know if you know or not, but is it more towards 50 or more towards 75, or does it vary still?
It still varies, man, because it all depends on your soil, and what your soil
Okay,
produces and the plant to be. So if you don't have the right
gotcha.
nutrients, if you don't have the right pH and all that stuff that we talked about on the previous episode, it may not be quite as digestible because it didn't have everything it needed to be digestible
Gotcha.
to that
Oh,
percentage. So that's
that makes
why
sense.
there's such a variation there. And so soybeans, they're really good, but this is what I was talking about in the beginning on the, you know, less protein digestion is lower than something with higher. So it goes back to your TDN. Soybeans are only 35 to 40% digestible. So
Oh, wow.
in
Okay.
comparison to clover, clover is a lot better all
Right.
the way around. So, and then the old
Right.
cowpeas actually win the cake on the TDN. Solid
Oh, really?
solid 70% across the
Okay.
board.
So, and this goes back to your point about, even if something is higher protein on paper,
Mm-hmm.
right, it
Yep.
may only be getting 50% of it versus 70% or whatever it is for whatever you're planting. But yeah, no,
Exactly.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So before I went and planted a plot, the best piece of advice that I have is to do some
Hmm.
research. Go online and type in how much TDN does Landino clover have, which is white clover, and it'll tell you. Go in and type in how
Right.
much does crimson clover have, how much does soybeans and all this stuff have, and it'll tell you before you go and plant. But still, the winner, in my opinion, especially for small plots and even larger plots, is clover. Clover, clover, clover. Plant it, you'll see results. I'm telling you, you're going to see a ton of results when you start running that clover mix and getting these deer to have the potential to digest 50 to 70% of everything that they eat out of that field.
No, dude, that's awesome. And fun fact, just Googled, I just followed your advice in real time and Googled how much
Oh,
TDN does crimson clover have.
nice.
And according to the Google, and again, this is just Google, but it says 60 to 70%. So there you go.
There you go. There you
And,
go. So,
the crimson clover is, I like it just because I just have to mow it once or twice and it comes back.
yeah, no, man. And see, that's the beautiful thing about clover. And that's why it's the winner. So let's break down why clover wins over these other two that we've been talking about. It has browse tolerance. It can handle being fed on all the time, not just by deer, but by turkeys too. It has some of the best TDN and the highest TDN, right? It really is hand in hand with the peas. But the biggest thing about the clover is that it will last on a tenth of an acre plot all the way up to a 5 acre plot. And neither of the
Mm-hmm.
latter will do that. They will
Right.
be gone within a couple days' time, and you only have, a couple of meals for the deer, and that's it. Our goal is to provide the total package for the herd, which is everything that they need in one spot or multiple spots. But
Yeah.
you get my drift. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and clover wins hands down because of all the things we just said, and it comes back for up to 5 years.
Yeah.
None of
So
these
it's good
others
for your
do that.
wallet.
Yeah, it's great for your wallet, actually. And you can
Yeah.
even spray clover. There's herbicides out there specifically for clover, so you don't have all the weeds and all that stuff. You can have a beautiful clover plot that looks real nice. And hey, man,
Luscious.
it's never a bad thing to have clover anyway. It's really good pollinator too, so it helps your bees and helps the ecosystem just roll right through.
Now, Would you plant it with like a winter wheat? I know a lot of people that kind of put a cover seed with it. That kind of that way, it's got something to grow with, and all the birds don't eat just all your clover and all this stuff. Because I've done it both ways, straight clover and then with the wheat, and it seems to work both ways for me. I mean, I don't know if you have more to add to that.
Well, it depends on when you're planting, because if you plant clover now, winter wheat will never survive, because in its name, the winter wheat, it's not going to do as good as if you plant it in September, right? Because the temperatures are starting to come down and things like that. But there are other plants that you can throw in there with the clover. I like to be a little more diversified, I guess. And what I mean by that is, like, when you roll up into the field, the field I'm talking about, the graveyard field. So on the left side,
Yeah,
there's corn. On the right side, there's clover. And in the back, there is turnips and a wheat mix. So that's just
gotcha.
one. That's kind of, I like to separate them all out so that way the deer can just kind of pick and choose what they want. Because at the end of the day, they're browsers, right? They're not grazers like cattle. Cattle just sit there with their face on the ground grazing. I couldn't get it out, but a deer is very selective and will go back and forth and, pick whatever they want to, i.e., browsers. That's what they do. And,
Gotcha.
the way that I do it doesn't mean that that's the 100% foolproof way to do it. I think the way you do it is perfectly fine too. I think it's all
Yeah,
in personal preference. I think that's 110% of what it is personal preference.
I like it. I like it. Yeah, well, as Ben knows, on my little food plot, I do not have a big field. Uh, for those of you that don't know, I've have like a, I don't know, half acre, 3/4 acre tops, uh, little plot that I literally cut in half, and half of it's chufa, the other half of it's clover, and I mix some wheat in there, and then on a little strip on the bottom, close to my tree stand, is where I plant some sort of brassica, usually like a dakin radish or something. My deer just seem to love it, and it's good for the soil and all that jazz. But uh, that's all I have. So it's like my point with saying that is, you don't need right this 13-acre field or anything, like even a half acre food plot. Hey man, it works. It's just something to draw that deer away from your neighbors, away from its normal pattern, and it's like, especially after the rut, i I feel like food plots are really really effective 2 times of the year: early season evenings, and then post rut, kind of all day, essentially, just because they're wanting to restore their fat and proteins and things. Um, I don't I don't necessarily have success during the rut, in a food plot, because of the food plot. And what I mean by that is, like, I've killed deer in the food plot in the rut, but it's usually because they're just chasing through that field. It really has never been because of the food, unless it's post rut or they had a really long day of chasing and they do come in. But most of the time, it's after the rut ends for me.
Yeah, no, I've seen that, and I think it's definitely one of those things too that is situational and location based. Because where you are, that is what they're doing, right? They're going and running and not stopping in the food plots, but then in other locations, all the does are in the food plot. So where's the old buck going to come out to look around and see who's ready? The food plot. So
Right.
I really
Yeah,
think it's
exactly.
location specific on that, and every deer is different. There's
Oh
not
yeah.
a single deer
And
that
yeah.
is the same, and they
Yeah,
all
exactly. I
choose.
mean,
Yeah,
yep. No,
they
I
all.
totally agree, man. Because I have shot a deer that just like you're saying, dude. I remember I was sitting over a clover field actually in Middle Tennessee, and dude, there was some stupid amount of does, like, I don't know, 20 or 30 does out there, and I just hear this big grunt from the top of this ridge, just brr, brr. And I thought, oh, here we go. And this old dude come in there acting like he was somebody. And then, dude, he came running just by me, bolting. And he went by me, this probably like 100 yards, went into this other little clearing. And then I grunted at him, and he came back, and that was all she wrote for that deer.
That was
but
all
yeah,
she
man,
wrote.
it was awesome.
Heck
That's
yeah,
it,
dude.
buddy.
Man, I tell you.
But anyway,
I love hunting food plots. I don't know why. I just love it.
Me too, man. I've shot a number of deer over them, and big deer at that.
Yeah, man, me too. And I know there's a lot of folks out there that are diehard, white oak hunters, and that's great because that's a real smart move because that's where they are. But I don't know what it is about me, but I just absolutely love either crawling into a shooting house or climbing up into a lock-on or a saddle, whatever I'm in that day. I just like watching a food plot. I don't know why. It's just something I've liked since I was a kid. It just seems like the right place to be. And I'd probably kill more deer if I was up in the woods more. And I'm going to try that this year. I'm going to try that. We're going to give it an old whirl this year and see what we can't come up with and see if we can't dial it in a bit and get one of those big old mountain bucks. I'll show you what a mountain buck is. We're going to kill one this year.
Yeah. Oh, well, and listen, I've killed deer plenty on ridges and fingers on a saddle, all that stuff. I'm right there with you. But there is something pretty awesome about a food plot. I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you are. But we were together the other day, and we were in a good spot deep in the woods, and I think that's one of them show enough spots. Is it good? It show enough is. You know what I'm saying?
Show enough is, and it's show enough going to be real good when I put that clover plot in there. I can promise you that. So,
dude, those bucks are going to be like, what is this clover in the middle of this wilderness?
Oh, dude, listen, I'll go hunt the woods all day, but if I can somehow finagle a food plot in there, I'm going to figure out a way to get it in there. We're going to figure out how to either get the tractor in there, one. Number two, we're going to try to get the tiller in there, the hand tiller. And if all else fails, I'll bring out the old hard tooth rake and just rake my little heart away, and break up that soil the best I can, and then spread some seed out and run over it with the four-wheeler back and forth, packing it in a little bit, and or take a drag up there or whatever, go back to the real old school ways of planting a food plot in a mountain situation. But we're going to give it everything we got. And you know how I am. I'll drive it side by side, smooth over a tree. I don't care. That thing's like a little mini bulldozer. So it's like, oh, there's a sapling there. What's that?
Oh, yeah. I found that out real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, you did. Oh, man. It's like them old diesel brothers, they're always testing their vehicles. They want to test something. Come test it with me. I'll probably break it in a couple of days.
Buddy, I'm telling you right now, me and him, we're driving, and usually people slow down when they hit stuff. Well, Ben was like, oh no, more throttle to get so that way I could go over this little tree. And I'm like, all right, man, hey, whatever you think, let's roll, boys. There was literally a tree down. A tree was down, and he's like, I think I see a hole right here in the branches. I'm like, I hope it don't fall on us. Yeah, full send it, brother. Let's roll. And buddy, we punched it through there. That's it.
Right on out there, man. Hey, look, we are not sponsored by Honda in any way, shape, or form. But let me tell you something. That little Pioneer is the little engine that could. I have used and abused that Pioneer. I mean, I have beat every trail possible. It's been in the Arkansas gumbo. It has been anywhere and everywhere you can imagine putting something. That rascal's been there and done it well.
That's right.
And I haven't had, knock on wood, any major problems yet, even though my shift cylinder's out right now, but it's got a lot of miles on it. That old girl's been hitting the trails for a while.
Yeah. Well, and it's definitely hit a couple bumps and bruises that it didn't want to hit, but you made it. So what are you going to do, you know?
Yeah, man, I just kind of make my own trail. If I see somewhere I want to go, well, I'll figure out how to get there. You know, four-wheel drive, differential lock, let's rip it. You know, I mean, look, here's my philosophy, John. We're either going to get there or we're going to get stuck so bad that we got to have a tractor to pull us out. One of the two.
Yeah,
that's the only way to do it.
Oh, yeah. We're going to, I mean, to the axle, through the axle, to the door. We're stuck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've done that before. I drove that rascal off into a little bayou in Illinois, man. I got this idea. I was like, man, I need to try to shoot some fish like this. And heck, I don't remember who was with me, but they said something about it too. And I was like, shoot, don't tempt me with a good time. This baby's got tractor tires on it. What you talking about? I'll drive off in that. Wrong idea. I was sitting on the frame, brother. The tires were not touching the ground no more. It was just the frame and the tires spinning in the water. Free spin. Hey, we gave her all she had, though, buddy. We gave her 100%. Sure enough.
That's all you can do in life.
That's right, man. But the moral of all of this that we're talking about right now, guys, is we just want to give you the very best knowledge to go in and take care of your deer herd, to grow your bucks, to take care of the does to where they produce the highest amount of digestible milk. There you go. The best kind of milk. We want that high quality lactation going on in our does. So that way our fawns can grow up, and the ones that are bucks are your 4 or 5 year plan, guys. You know, that's the whole thing. It all starts with the doe, and it all starts with the doe dropping a fawn and the fawn being healthy and growing up and thriving. And that's where it all begins, and that's the way you have big deer year after year after year after year. You take care of the mamas and the babies first, because them babies going to grow up to be big old bucks.
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
We're talking about all this, you know, good milk and things. And the deer will never have. Dude, I just thought about it. The deer will never have chocolate milk. Hey, that's the saddest thing I've ever thought of in my whole life.
I mean, we could give them chocolate milk.
Dude, I wonder if a chocolate milk would give a deer better antlers, or if they'd be dark horned. Who knows?
Yeah.
What a freaking goober! All right, I gotta quit talking. I'm gonna get myself in trouble.
Listen, I'm gonna tell y'all this. John has consumed more chocolate milk than any human I have ever known in my entire life. In fact, if there was any way that I could and it would stay good long enough, I would buy him a semi-truckload of chocolate milk, and he could just park it right there in the yard.
That's why it's in the intro.
Yeah, go out and fill himself up a glass of chocolate milk every day, 5 times a day. I don't care. Go drink you a gallon a day, man. You got, 80,000 pounds worth of it out there. So however many gallons that is, I mean, it's 8. I think water's around 8 pounds a gallon. So I'm not sure what milk is, but close enough.
Right. Hey,
close enough.
Dude, I'm telling you, listen, if y'all ever see me at a trade show or you want to come up to me for whatever god awful reason, if you come up with chocolate milk, odds are I'll be pretty happy about it. So bring it on.
He's like one of them dogs that you throw a piece of meat to. He's gonna be your buddy forever. If you walk up to him with a handful of chocolate milk, John's gonna be your buddy. Just
I'm gonna be like, I like this person already.
Yeah, right out the gate. Yeah, shoot, yeah. Hey, I like chocolate milk too, but if you approach me with a good cold vanilla Coke, I'm your buddy then.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We in business.
Yeah, we in business there, man. Well, folks, that's all I've got to say today. John, you got anything else?
No, man, I think we covered everything we needed to, and then, went off on a couple tangents, which is pretty normal for us, which is fine and dandy. That's what makes us interesting and makes us us. So, no, man, all I've got to say is, just make sure you guys stay tuned. We've got some really, really exciting things happening. We've got some awesome episodes coming up. I'm telling y'all, You guys are going to love what we have coming up. As always, make sure you check out all of our pages: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. Go to rootedtelevision.com, buy all of our merch, watch all the Rooted TV videos, support in any way you can. Also, there is a link in the description to support this podcast. That link will give you all the directions to donate, and you guys can help us keep doing what we are doing. So that's pretty much all I've got. Just check us out and stay tuned. We got some cool stuff coming down the pipe.
With that, folks, the redneck is out.
See y'all.
For all things Rooted Podcast and Rooted Television, and I mean hats, shirts, hoodies, and other merch, check out our friends at CH Lone Star Pro and the link that is in our description.